Jake Morrison stood at the window of the space station, looking out at the stars. He had seen many strange things in his 32 years, but nothing like this. 3 days ago, humanity had made contact with aliens for the first time. Now he was about to meet one of them. The space station New Geneva floated in empty space between Earth and the alien homeworld. It was neutral ground where humans and aliens could meet safely. Jake had arrived yesterday with the diplomatic team from Earth. His job was simple: protect whoever they told him to protect. "Morrison, you ready for this?" Captain Lisa Barnes walked up beside him. She was the leader of the human team. Her face looked tired from all the meetings with government officials. "Yes, ma'am. Just tell me what you need me to do." Jake had been a soldier for 10 years before becoming a private security guard. He knew how to follow orders. The aliens are called ethereals. They're sending their princess here as part of the peace talks. Your job is to keep her safe while she's on the station. Lisa handed him a data pad with information about the mission. Jake read through the files. The ethereals were tall and thin, with skin that looked like crystal. They could read minds and had technology far beyond what humans possessed. Their empire was old and powerful. The princess was young by their standards, maybe equivalent to a human teenager. Why do they want a human bodyguard? Don't they have their own guards? Jake asked. It's part of building trust. They're showing they believe we can protect their most important people. If this works, it could mean trade deals, shared technology, maybe even friendship between our species. Lisa looked serious. Don't mess this up, Morrison. 2 hours later, Jake waited in the main docking bay. Other humans stood around nervously. No one knew what to expect. The alien ship didn't look like anything humans had built. It was smooth and white, shaped like a teardrop made of light. The ship landed without making any sound. A door opened, but Jake couldn't see how. One moment the hull was solid, the next there was an opening. 3 figures stepped out. The first was clearly a soldier. He wore armor that shifted colors like oil on water. His face was sharp and angular, with eyes that glowed faintly blue. He looked around the docking bay like he was checking for threats. The second alien was older, with ceremonial robes that seemed to float around his body. He must be some kind of diplomat or advisor. Then came the princess. Jake had read the files, but seeing her in person was different. She was tall, maybe 6.5 feet, but moved with perfect grace. Her skin really did look like crystal, pale and translucent with light moving underneath. Her hair was long and white, almost silver. When she looked around, her large eyes seemed to take in everything at once. She was beautiful, but in a way that reminded Jake she wasn't human. Everything about her was too perfect, too smooth. When she moved, it was like watching water flow. Captain Barnes stepped forward. "Welcome to New Geneva Station. I am Captain Lisa Barnes, representing Earth's diplomatic corps." The older alien spoke first. His words came out as musical tones, but somehow Jake understood them. The aliens must have translation devices. "I am Advisor Nextran. This is Commander Kyle Seth of the Royal Guard. And this is Her Highness Princess Zara Lynn of the Ethereal Empire." The princess stepped forward. When she spoke, her voice was soft but clear. "Thank you for welcoming us. We hope this meeting will bring peace between our peoples. Your Highness, this is Jake Morrison. He will be your personal protection specialist during your stay." Captain Barnes gestured to Jake. Jake stepped forward and gave a small bow. He wasn't sure what the proper greeting was for alien royalty. "Your Highness, I'm honored to serve as your bodyguard." The princess studied him with those large, strange eyes. For a moment, Jake felt like she was looking right through him. Maybe she was reading his mind. The thought made him uncomfortable. "You were a soldier," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, Your Highness. 10 years in the Earth Defense Force, then 5 years in private security. You have protected important people before?" "Yes, ma'am. Politicians, business leaders, their families." The princess nodded slowly. "Good. I have been told humans are brave and loyal. I hope this is true." Commander Kyle Seth stepped closer. He was even taller than the princess and looked like he could break Jake in half. "Human, if any harm comes to the princess, you will answer to me personally." Jake met the alien's glowing eyes without flinching. "Understood, sir. But nothing will happen to her while I'm on duty." The next few hours were spent getting the princess settled in her quarters. The aliens had brought their own furniture and decorations. Jake watched as they unpacked items that seemed to be made of pure light. Everything they touched glowed softly. Dr. Kevin Wright, the human cultural expert, explained the daily schedule. There would be formal meetings in the morning, cultural exchanges in the afternoon, and social events in the evening. The princess would be free to explore the station, but Jake would stay with her at all times. "Do you have questions about human customs?" Dr. Wright asked the princess many questions. "I have studied your species, but reading about humans is different from meeting them." She looked at Jake. "For example, why do you carry weapons if this is a peaceful meeting?" Jake touched the pistol on his hip. "Because peace doesn't always last, Your Highness. It's my job to be ready if things go wrong." The princess seemed to think about this. "On my world, personal guards are chosen from family members. They protect us because of blood loyalty. Why do you protect someone you just met?" "Because it's the right thing to do," Jake said simply. "And because I gave my word." Something in the princess's expression changed. She looked at him differently, like she was seeing something new. "I think I will learn much about humans," she said quietly. That evening, Jake walked the princess to the main conference room for a welcome dinner. She had changed into a flowing dress that looked like it was made of starlight. Other humans stared as they passed. Jake kept his eyes moving, watching for threats. "Tell me about Earth," the princess said as they walked. "What would you like to know?" "Everything. Your cities, your people, your wars, your art. I want to understand what makes humans different from other species." Jake thought about how to answer. "We're not the strongest or the smartest. We don't live as long as your people, but we don't give up easily. When something matters to us, we'll fight for it even when we can't win." "Is that why you became a soldier?" "Partly. I wanted to protect people who couldn't protect themselves." The princess was quiet for a moment. "My mother, the queen, says humans are young and foolish. She thinks you will bring chaos to the galaxy." "Maybe we will," Jake admitted, "but sometimes chaos is better than a comfortable lie." They reached the conference room. Through the doors, Jake could see humans and aliens sitting at tables together, trying to build bridges between worlds. It looked peaceful, but Jake's training told him to stay alert. In his experience, the most dangerous moments often came when everything seemed safe. As they entered the room, Jake noticed something that made him pause. One of the alien guards was watching the princess too carefully. His hand rested near his weapon, and his eyes held something that looked like hate. Jake filed the observation away. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was everything. He had a feeling this assignment was going to be more complicated than anyone expected. 3 days had passed since the princess arrived. Jake was beginning to understand her daily routine. She woke early, spent time in meditation, then attended meetings with human diplomats. In the afternoon, she explored the station and asked endless questions about human culture. Jake found himself enjoying her company. Princess Zaralyn wasn't what he had expected from alien royalty. She was curious about everything, from how humans prepared food to why they kept pets. She seemed genuinely interested in learning, not just going through diplomatic motions. "Why do humans shake hands when they meet?" she asked as they walked through the station's recreation area. "It shows we're not carrying weapons. It's a sign of trust," Jake explained. The princess stopped walking and held out her hand. "Show me." Jake took her hand carefully. Her skin felt warm but strange, like touching smooth stone. "You shake it gently like this. Interesting. Ethereals touch foreheads when we greet family, but we do not touch strangers." She seemed fascinated by the simple gesture. They continued their walk through the station. Jake noticed more details each day. The way some of the alien guards watched the princess, the tension in meetings between the diplomats, the careful way everyone spoke like they were walking on broken glass. Dr. Kevin Wright had warned Jake that not everyone wanted these peace talks to succeed. Some humans thought aliens were too dangerous to trust. Some aliens thought humans were too primitive to deal with. Both sides had people who preferred war to cooperation. That evening, Jake was reviewing security reports in his room when the station's alarm system activated. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and an automated voice announced a general emergency. Jake grabbed his weapon and ran toward the princess's quarters. The hallways were filled with people moving in different directions. Some headed for emergency stations, others toward the escape pods. He reached the princess's door and found it sealed shut. The electronic lock was damaged, sparks flying from the control panel. Jake could hear sounds of fighting from inside. "Princess," he shouted, trying to force the door. The sound stopped. Then he heard the princess scream. Jake stepped back and kicked the door as hard as he could. The metal bent but held. He kicked again. On the third try, the door broke open. Inside, he found chaos. Furniture was overturned. Scorch marks covered the walls from energy weapons. Three alien figures in black armor stood around the princess, who was cornered near the window. Jake didn't hesitate. He fired at the nearest attacker, his bullet striking the alien's armor. The figure stumbled but didn't fall. The armor was too strong for human weapons. The attackers turned toward Jake. Their faces were covered, but he could see their glowing eyes through the masks. These weren't random criminals. They moved like trained soldiers. "Human, leave now and you will not be harmed," one of them said. "We only want the princess." "Not happening," Jake replied, moving to put himself between the attackers and Princess Zara Lynn. The aliens raised their weapons. Jake dove to the side as energy blasts filled the air where he had been standing. The shots left burning holes in the wall behind him. Jake rolled behind an overturned table and returned fire. His bullets bounced off the aliens' armor, but they forced the attackers to take cover. Princess Zara Lynn pressed herself against the wall, her face pale with fear. "Princess, when I say run, head for the door," Jake called out. "I will not leave you," she replied. "That's an order." "Your Highness." More energy blasts came his way. The table he was hiding behind started to melt from the heat. Jake realized his position was hopeless. 3 trained aliens with advanced weapons against 1 human with a pistol. The math was simple, but math had never stopped him before. Jake grabbed a piece of the broken door and threw it toward the attackers as a distraction. While they were focused on the flying metal, he charged straight at them. The aliens weren't expecting such a direct attack. Jake tackled the nearest one, knocking him to the ground. They fought hand to hand, rolling across the floor. The alien was stronger, but Jake had more experience fighting dirty. He managed to get the alien's weapon and fired it at the other 2 attackers. The energy blast caught one in the chest, sending him flying into the wall. The alien didn't get back up. The 3rd attacker fired at Jake. The energy beam hit him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Pain exploded through his body and he could smell his own burned flesh. But he kept moving. "Run!" he shouted at the princess. This time she obeyed, heading for the broken door. The remaining attacker turned to follow her, raising his weapon to fire at her back. Jake threw himself in front of the energy blast. The beam hit him full in the chest. He felt his body burning from the inside out. The world went white with pain, then started to fade to black. He hit the floor hard and couldn't get back up. Through the ringing in his ears, he heard more fighting. Station security had finally arrived. Human and alien voices shouted commands. Energy weapons fired in both directions. Jake tried to stay conscious, but his body wasn't responding. He could see Princess Zara Lynn kneeling beside him, her hands pressed against his chest. She was saying something, but he couldn't make out the words. Her face was wet with tears. More people arrived. Dr. Wright, Captain Barnes, alien medics with strange equipment. They were all talking at once, but their voices sounded far away. Someone lifted Jake onto a stretcher. As they carried him toward the medical bay, he caught glimpses of the corridor. Scorch marks on the walls, broken equipment, bodies of the attackers being examined by security teams. "Will he live?" he heard Princess Zara Lynn ask. "We don't know," Dr. Wright replied. "The alien weapons cause radiation poisoning. Human medicine might not be enough." "Then use our medicine," the princess said firmly. "Do whatever is necessary." Jake wanted to tell her not to waste alien resources on 1 human, but he couldn't speak. The words wouldn't come. His body felt like it was shutting down piece by piece. In the medical bay, human and alien doctors worked together over Jake's body. They attached machines he didn't recognize, injected him with substances that glowed in the dark. The pain was incredible, but it meant he was still alive. Princess Zara Lynn stayed by his side the entire time. She held his hand while the doctors worked, talking to him quietly in her musical language. Jake couldn't understand the words, but her voice was comforting. "Why?" she asked when the doctors stepped away for a moment. "Why did you protect me? You barely know me." Jake managed to open his eyes and look at her. Speaking was difficult, but he forced the words out. "Because it's what humans do. We protect people we care about. You care about me. You're a good person, princess. Your people are lucky to have you." Tears ran down her crystal-like face. "My mother says humans are weak because you die so easily. But I think you are strong, because you choose to risk death for others." Jake squeezed her hand as much as he could. "Don't let them stop the peace talks. Your people and mine, we can do good things together. I promise," she whispered. The next few hours passed in a blur of pain and medication. Jake drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes he heard voices discussing his condition. Sometimes he felt the princess's hand in his. Sometimes there was only darkness and the sound of machines keeping him alive. When he finally woke up properly, Captain Barnes was sitting beside his bed. She looked relieved to see him conscious. "How do you feel, Morrison?" "Like I got hit by a truck made of lightning," Jake croaked. "That's not far from the truth. The alien weapons nearly killed you. If Princess Zaralyn hadn't insisted on using ethereal medical technology, you wouldn't have made it." Jake looked around the medical bay. He was connected to several alien machines that hummed softly. Strange lights played across his skin where the energy blasts had hit him. The attackers? 2 dead, 1 captured. They were separatists, aliens who oppose any alliance with humanity. They wanted to kill the princess and make it look like human security failed. But we stopped them. You stopped them, Morrison. The princess is safe because of what you did. Captain Barnes leaned forward. There's something else. Queen Velthara is coming here personally. She wants to meet the human who saved her daughter. Jake closed his eyes. Meeting alien royalty while lying in a hospital bed wasn't how he had planned to spend his week. "Sir, I was just doing my job." "Maybe. But according to Princess Zaralyn, you've created a problem. In ethereal culture, when someone saves a member of the royal family, it creates something called a life debt. The queen has to find a way to repay you properly or her honor is damaged. I don't want anything from them. That's part of the problem. The fact that you don't want a reward makes the debt even more serious." Captain Barnes stood up. "Get some rest, Morrison. I have a feeling things are about to get very complicated." Jake spent 5 days in the medical bay recovering from his injuries. The alien technology had saved his life, but healing took time. The energy weapons had damaged him in ways human medicine couldn't fully understand. Princess Zaralyn visited him every day. She brought him food she had learned to prepare in the station's kitchen, simple human meals that reminded him of home. She also told him stories about her world, describing cities that floated in the clouds and forests made of living crystal. "Why do you spend so much time here?" Jake asked on the 3rd day. "Don't you have diplomatic meetings to attend?" "The meetings are boring. Politicians talking in circles, saying much but meaning little." She sat down in the chair beside his bed. "I prefer to spend time with someone who speaks honestly. I'm just a security guard, Princess. I'm not good with fancy words. That is why I like talking to you. When you speak, you mean what you say." On the 5th day, everything changed. Captain Barnes came to the medical bay with news that made Jake's stomach sink. "Queen Velthara arrives tomorrow. She's bringing a full diplomatic escort and half the ethereal royal guard." Barnes looked worried. This was supposed to be a small meeting between low-level diplomats. Now we have the most powerful alien ruler in the galaxy coming here personally. "Is that bad?" Jake asked. "It means the stakes just got a lot higher. If we mess this up, it could mean war instead of peace." Dr. Wright appeared in the doorway. "Morrison, you need to understand something about ethereal culture. When the queen arrives, she's going to want to examine your mind directly." "What does that mean?" "Ethereals are telepathic. They can read thoughts and memories. The queen will want to see exactly what happened when you saved the princess. She needs to understand your motivations." Jake didn't like the sound of that. "What if I don't want her poking around in my head?" "Then you'll insult the ruler of an empire that could destroy Earth with 1 fleet," Barnes said bluntly. "Morrison, I need you to cooperate with whatever she wants. Too much depends on this." The next morning, Jake was released from the medical bay. His body still ached, and the doctors warned him to take things easy. But he could walk and think clearly, which was enough. Princess Zaralyn met him in the corridor outside. She looked nervous, which was unusual for her. "My mother is not like me," she said quietly. "She is old and powerful and used to being obeyed without question. Do not take her coldness personally. I'll try to stay on her good side. Jake, there is something you must know. When my mother examines your memories, she will see everything, not just what happened during the attack, but your whole life. Your fears, your regrets, your private thoughts." "I am sorry," Jake nodded slowly. He had expected something like this. "Will it hurt?" "No, but it may be uncomfortable." "Try to stay calm and think about why you protected me. My mother respects courage and honor above all things." An hour later, Jake stood in the main docking bay with the other humans, waiting for the queen to arrive. The ethereal ship that came through the space gateway was massive, 10 times larger than the vessel that had brought the princess. It looked like a cathedral made of light and metal. When the ship docked, Jake felt the air itself change. There was a pressure that hadn't been there before. like standing near a powerful electrical generator. Even the humans who couldn't sense telepathic energy noticed something different. The Queen emerged from her ship surrounded by guards in ceremonial armor. She was taller than her daughter, with silver hair that moved like liquid metal. Her skin was pale as starlight and her eyes held the weight of centuries. When she looked around the docking bay, Jake felt like she was seeing through everything to the truth underneath. Behind her came an alien Jake recognized from the files, Commander Thexville, the Queen's chief military advisor. He was the one Jake had noticed watching the princess too carefully at the welcome dinner. Captain Barnes stepped forward to greet the Queen, but Queen Velthara's attention was already focused on Jake. She walked directly to him, her guards following close behind. "You are the human who saved my daughter," she said. Her voice carried power that made Jake's bones vibrate. "Yes, Your Majesty." "Kneel." Jake hesitated for a moment, then got down on one knee. It felt strange to kneel to anyone, but he remembered what Captain Barnes had said about not insulting an alien ruler. The Queen placed her hand on Jake's forehead. "I will see the truth of what happened. Do not resist." Jake felt her mind touch his. It was like having someone walk through his house, opening every door and reading every book. The Queen saw his childhood, his military service, his fears and hopes. She saw the moment he decided to become a bodyguard, and the moment he chose to protect Princess Zara Lynn. The mental contact lasted only seconds, but it felt like hours. When the Queen removed her hand, Jake swayed on his knees. Princess Zara Lynn steadied him with a gentle touch on his shoulder. Queen Velthara was quiet for a long moment, studying Jake with new understanding. "Rise, human." Jake stood up, trying to keep his balance. The telepathic examination had left him feeling dizzy and exposed. "I have seen your memories. You protected my daughter without thought of reward or recognition. You were willing to die for someone you had known for only 3 days. The Queen's expression was unreadable. "By the laws of my people, this creates a life debt that cannot be ignored. Your Majesty, I don't want anything in return. I was just doing my job. That is precisely the problem." The Queen turned to address the assembled humans and aliens. "This human has created a situation that our laws did not anticipate. He saved the life of an ethereal princess, but he wants no payment. He risks death for honor alone. Such actions demand proper recognition." Dr. Wright stepped forward carefully. "Your Majesty, could you explain what this means for both our peoples?" "It means that Jake Morrison has earned a place in my household. According to our traditions, he cannot be released from this obligation until the life debt is properly balanced." Captain Barnes looked alarmed. "Are you saying he can't return to Earth?" "I am saying that he now belongs to the royal house of Velthara. He will come to our homeworld as a protected guest with all the rights and privileges that entails." Jake felt his stomach drop. "Your Majesty, with respect, I never agreed to leave my world permanently." The Queen's eyes flashed with something that might have been anger. "You agreed when you chose to save my daughter. Actions have consequences, human. Honor demands payment." Princess Zara Lynn spoke up, her voice carefully controlled. "Mother forcing him to stay would dishonor his sacrifice. He acted freely. He should remain free. Daughter, you do not understand the weight of royal obligation. This human has bound himself to our house by his actions. I cannot simply ignore such a debt." Jake looked around at the faces watching him. Humans looked worried and confused. Aliens seemed fascinated by the unusual situation. Princess Zara Lynn looked sad, like she blamed herself for what was happening. "Your Majesty," Jake said carefully, "what if we found a compromise? I could come to your world temporarily, learn about your culture, and help you find a solution that satisfies both our people's sense of honor." The Queen considered this. "You would willingly come to our homeworld knowing you might never be allowed to leave?" "If it helps build peace between our species, yes." Commander Thexville stepped forward. "My Queen, is it wise to bring a human to our sacred world? They are primitives who understand nothing of our ways." Queen Velthara silenced him with a look. "This human has proven his worth through actions, not words. I will consider his proposal." She turned back to Jake. "Very well. You will accompany us to our homeworld for 1 year. During that time you will learn our customs and serve as advisor on human nature. At the year's end we will determine how to properly balance the life debt. And if we can't find a solution, then you will remain with us permanently." Jake felt like he was standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down into the unknown. But Princess Zara Lynn was watching him with hope in her eyes. and Captain Barnes was nodding slightly, encouraging him to agree. "I accept your terms, Your Majesty." The Queen smiled for the first time since arriving. "Good. We leave tomorrow." As the crowd began to disperse, Princess Zaralyn approached Jake quietly. "Thank you," she whispered. "I know this is not what you wanted, maybe not. But it's the right thing to do." Jake looked at her worried face. "Besides, someone needs to keep an eye on you. You have a talent for getting into trouble." For the first time in days, the princess laughed. "I think you are the one with a talent for trouble, Jake Morrison." That evening, Jake packed his few belongings and said goodbye to his human colleagues. Dr. Wright gave him files on ethereal culture to study during the journey. Captain Barnes shook his hand and wished him luck. "Morrison, you're about to become the first human to visit an alien homeworld. Try not to start any wars while you're there." "I'll do my best, Captain." As Jake prepared for sleep, he wondered what he had gotten himself into. Tomorrow, he would leave everything familiar behind and travel to a world unlike anything humans had ever seen. He would be surrounded by aliens, bound by laws he didn't understand, living with consequences he never intended. But when he thought about Princess Zaralyn's smile and the possibility of real peace between their peoples, he knew he had made the right choice, even if it might cost him everything. The journey to the ethereal homeworld took 3 weeks. Jake traveled aboard Queen Velthara's flagship, a massive vessel that was part palace, part military command center. Every surface seemed to be made of crystal and light, with corridors that curved in impossible directions. Jake was given quarters near the royal family's section of the ship. His rooms were beautiful but strange, furniture that changed shape when he sat on it, windows that showed different star patterns depending on his mood, walls that glowed softly with their own inner light. Princess Zaralyn visited him every day, teaching him about her people's customs and language. The ethereal language was musical, with tones that carried as much meaning as words. Jake struggled with it at first, but gradually began to understand simple phrases. "Your progress is remarkable," the princess said during one lesson. "Most humans who learn our language take years to reach this level. I've always been good with languages. Comes from growing up in a military family. We moved around a lot." Jake practiced the phrase she had just taught him, something about respectful greeting. "Jake, I must warn you about something. When we reach our homeworld, there will be a formal ceremony to present you to the royal court. Many of my people are not happy about a human being granted such honor." "What kind of not happy are we talking about?" "Some believe humans are too primitive to understand our ways. Others think you are dangerous, that bringing you to our world threatens our security." She looked worried. "There may be challenges to your presence." "What kind of challenges?" "Tests of your worthiness, demonstrations of your knowledge and skills. Some may even challenge you to combat to prove you deserve the Queen's protection." Jake sighed. "Just once, I'd like a simple assignment that doesn't involve people trying to kill me." The princess smiled sadly. "I am sorry you have been drawn into our politics. This is not what you deserve for saving my life. Hey, I made the choice to come here. Whatever happens, I'll deal with it." During the journey, Jake also had several meetings with Queen Velthara. She was testing him, he realized, trying to understand how his mind worked and whether he could be trusted. Their conversations covered everything from human military tactics to philosophy about the nature of duty. "Tell me, Jake Morrison, what do you think of when you look at the stars?" the Queen asked during one of their talks. They were standing in the ship's observation deck, looking out at the swirling lights of hyperspace. The view was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "I think about how big everything is, how many worlds are out there, how many people we haven't met yet. Makes human problems seem smaller somehow. And does that comfort you or frighten you?" Jake considered the question. "Both, I guess. It's scary to realize how little we know, but it's exciting too. There's so much to discover." The Queen nodded approvingly. "That is a wise answer. Many of my people have forgotten the joy of discovery. They prefer the safety of what they already know." On the final day of the journey, Jake got his first look at the ethereal homeworld. It was nothing like Earth. 3 silver moons hung in a purple sky above continents that glowed with their own light. Cities floated in the air like bubbles of crystal and starlight. The oceans were deep blue-green with islands that moved slowly across the surface. "It's beautiful," Jake breathed. "It is home," Princess Zaralyn said simply. "For 1,000 generations, my people have shaped this world and been shaped by it." They landed at the capital city, which was built on a mountain that reached into the clouds. The spaceport was carved from living rock that pulsed with gentle light. As they walked through the corridors, Jake saw other ethereals for the first time, hundreds of them, all tall and graceful, with skin that ranged from pale crystal to deep silver. Many stopped to stare at Jake. He was obviously different, shorter, darker with rough edges where they were smooth. Some watched with curiosity, others with suspicion. A few looked openly hostile. "Try not to take it personally," Princess Zaralyn whispered. "You are the first human most of them have ever seen." The royal palace was built into the mountain itself, with rooms and halls carved from the living rock. Everything glowed with soft light, and the air smelled like rain and growing things. Jake's quarters were in a tower that overlooked the floating garden surrounding the palace. That evening there was a formal dinner to welcome Jake to the homeworld. He wore his best human clothes, which looked plain and crude next to the flowing robes of the ethereals. The dining hall was vast, with a ceiling that showed the real-time view of the stars above. Queen Velthara stood to address the assembled nobles and court officials. "My friends, I present to you Jake Morrison of Earth. He has proven his worth through actions, not words. He saved the life of my daughter at the risk of his own, asking nothing in return. By our laws, he has earned a place in our house." The assembled ethereals murmured among themselves. Jake caught phrases in their musical language, some welcoming, others skeptical. An older ethereal stood up from the high table. His robes marked him as someone important, probably a noble or high-ranking official. "Your Majesty, with respect, bringing a human to our sacred world sets a dangerous precedent. What if other species demand the same privilege? What if he cannot adapt to our ways?" "Lord Kethamar raises a valid concern," the Queen replied calmly. "That is why Jake Morrison will undergo the traditional trials to prove his worthiness. If he succeeds, his place among us will be unquestioned. If he fails—" She didn't finish the sentence, but Jake understood. Failure would mean more than just embarrassment. Another ethereal spoke up, this one younger and more aggressive. "Your Majesty, no alien has ever attempted our trials. They were designed for our people, not for primitives who cannot even sense the flows of cosmic energy." Princess Zaralyn stood up sharply. "Captain Velnox, you speak out of ignorance. This human has shown more honor and courage than many of our own warriors." "Words are easy, Princess. Let him prove it with deeds." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Jake realized that this moment would set the tone for everything that followed. He could stay quiet and let others speak for him, or he could stand up for himself. He chose to stand. "Your Majesty, lords and ladies of the court, I understand your concerns. I am alien to your world and your ways, but I didn't come here to prove I'm better than anyone. I came because your daughter's life was in danger, and I couldn't walk away from that." He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of those who watched him with suspicion. "I know I'm different. I know I'm not as advanced as your people, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to try. And if your trials can prove whether I deserve the honor you've given me, then I'll face them." The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Queen Velthara smiled. "Well spoken. The trials will begin tomorrow." After dinner, Princess Zaralyn walked with Jake through the palace gardens. The plants here were unlike anything on Earth. Trees with leaves that sang in harmony, flowers that glowed like small stars, vines that reached out to touch visitors as they passed. "Jake, you don't have to do this. The trials are dangerous, even for our people. Some who attempt them are badly injured. A few have died." "What exactly are these trials?" 3 tests. The first tests physical courage and skill. The second tests mental strength and wisdom. The third tests spiritual understanding and connection to the greater universe. She looked worried. "That last one may be impossible for you. Ethereals are born with the ability to sense cosmic energy. Humans are not." "Then I'll have to find another way." They stopped beside a fountain that played with liquid light instead of water. Princess Zaralyn turned to face him, her expression serious. "Why are you doing this? You could ask my mother to send you home. She would honor that request even if it complicated the life debt." Jake thought about her question. It was a good one. Why was he risking his life for a culture he barely understood? For people who might never accept him? Because running away wouldn't solve anything. "Your people and mine are going to have to learn to live together. If I can't even pass your trials, what hope do we have for real cooperation? And if you die attempting them? Then at least I'll die trying to build something better." The princess was quiet for a long time, watching the light dance in the fountain. "My mother was right about humans. You are brave to the point of foolishness. Is that good or bad? I'm not sure yet. That night, Jake lay in his strange bed looking out at the alien stars. Tomorrow he would face trials designed for beings with abilities he didn't possess. In a culture he was only beginning to understand, the smart thing would be to refuse to ask to go home. To accept that some bridges couldn't be built, but Jake had never been accused of being too smart. He thought about Princess Zara Lynn's worried face, about Queen Velthara's calculating eyes, about all the ethereals who watched him with suspicion and doubt. He thought about Captain Barnes and Dr. Wright and all the humans back on Earth who were counting on these diplomatic contacts to succeed. Most of all, he thought about the moment when he had thrown himself in front of that energy blast to protect the princess. He hadn't thought about consequences then. He had simply seen someone who needed help and acted. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was all any of them could do. See what needed to be done and do it regardless of the cost. Tomorrow would. The first trial began at dawn in the palace's combat arena. Jake stood in the center of a circular chamber carved from black stone, wearing simple training clothes. Around him, hundreds of ethereals filled the viewing galleries, come to watch the human attempt their sacred tests. Queen Velthara sat on her throne at the arena's highest point. Princess Zara Lynn was beside her, looking nervous. Jake caught her eye and nodded slightly, trying to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. The trial of courage tests not just physical skill, but the will to persevere against overwhelming odds, announced the trial master, an ancient ethereal with silver markings across his crystal-like skin. 3 opponents entered the arena, ethereal warriors in ceremonial armor, each one a head taller than Jake and armed with energy weapons that hummed with power. They moved with the fluid grace of their species, but Jake could see the discipline of trained fighters in their stance. "Begin," the trial master called. The warriors came at Jake from 3 directions. He had no weapon except his bare hands and whatever he could improvise from his surroundings. The arena floor was smooth stone with few handholds, and the walls rose 30 feet on all sides. Jake rolled away from the first energy blast, feeling the heat as it passed over his head. He grabbed a piece of loose stone and hurled it at the nearest warrior, not expecting to cause damage but hoping to distract him. The second warrior fired while Jake was moving. The energy beam caught him in the leg, sending pain shooting through his body. But he had been hurt before. Pain was something he could work through. Jake used his smaller size and human agility to his advantage, staying close to the warriors where their long-range weapons were less effective. When one of them tried to club him with the butt of his energy rifle, Jake caught the weapon and used the warrior's own momentum to throw him to the ground. The crowd gasped. Apparently, few had expected the human to last more than a few seconds. Jake managed to get hold of one of the energy weapons, but it wouldn't fire for him. The weapon was designed for ethereal hands and nervous systems. Still, it made a decent club. The fight lasted 20 minutes. Jake was burned, bruised, and bleeding from a dozen small wounds. But he was still standing when the trial master called a halt. "The human has shown courage and determination," the trial master announced. "He passes the first trial." The crowd murmured in surprise. Princess Zara Lynn was smiling with relief. The second trial took place in a chamber filled with floating platforms and holographic displays. Jake had to solve a series of puzzles that tested logic, memory, and pattern recognition. Some involved mathematical equations written in ethereal symbols. Others required him to navigate mazes that existed only in his mind. The hardest part was a debate with 3 ethereal philosophers about the nature of justice and honor. Jake had to defend his actions during the attack on the space station, explaining not just what he had done, but why. "You claim you acted from honor," one philosopher challenged. "But honor requires understanding of consequences. Did you consider that your death might have made the situation worse?" "I considered that Princess Zara Lynn might die if I didn't act," Jake replied. "Everything else was secondary. Even the potential for war between our species? Even that. I couldn't save the galaxy, but I could save one person who didn't deserve to die." The philosophers conferred among themselves in rapid ethereal, their musical language rising and falling like a complex song. Finally, the senior philosopher nodded. "Your reasoning is simple but sound. You passed the second trial. 2 trials down, 1 to go. But the third trial was the one Princess Zaralyn had warned him about. The trial of understanding took place in the palace's highest tower, a room with walls made entirely of crystal that caught and reflected the light of the three moons. Jake stood alone in the center while the trial master prepared the test. This trial requires you to touch the cosmic flow that connects all living things, the trial master explained. You must demonstrate that you truly understand our people, not just our words and customs, but our spiritual essence. Jake had no idea how to do that. Humans weren't telepathic. They couldn't sense cosmic energy or whatever spiritual force the ethereals connected with. He was about to fail the most important test of his life because he lacked abilities he was born without. The trial master activated devices around the room that began to glow and hum. The crystal walls started to pulse with inner light, and Jake felt a strange pressure in the air. Reach out with your mind, the trial master instructed. Feel the connections between all things. Jake closed his eyes and tried to sense whatever the ethereals were talking about. He felt nothing except his own heartbeat and breathing. The cosmic energy that supposedly flowed through everything might as well have been invisible to him. Minutes passed. The humming grew louder. Jake could sense the disappointment from the watching crowd, even if he couldn't feel their telepathic emanations. Then he had an idea. Instead of trying to sense cosmic energy, Jake thought about connections he could understand. He thought about Princess Zaralyn teaching him her language, sharing stories of her world. He thought about Queen Velthara examining his memories and finding something worth respecting. He thought about Dr. Wright explaining alien customs, and Captain Barnes trusting him with an impossible mission. He thought about all the ways that different beings could reach across the gap between species and find common ground. Jake opened his eyes and spoke to the trial master. I can't sense the cosmic flow the way your people do. I don't have that ability, and I probably never will, but I can sense something else. The connections we choose to make with each other. The moment when Princess Zaralyn stopped seeing me as just another alien and started seeing me as a friend. The moment when your queen decided to trust a human with her daughter's safety. Those connections are real, even if I can't feel them the way you do. The trial master looked puzzled. You admit you cannot complete the trial as designed? I admit I'm not an ethereal, but I don't need to be. I just need to be human in a way that honors what you value. Courage, wisdom, and connection to something larger than myself. Jake looked up at Queen Velthara in her viewing box. Your Majesty, I'll never be able to sense cosmic energy or read minds or live for centuries like your people. But I can offer something else. The perspective of someone who chooses to connect across differences, not because it's easy or natural, but because it's necessary. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Queen Velthara stood and walked down to the trial chamber. The crowd watched in amazement as their ruler stepped into the crystal circle with Jake. Trial Master, has any candidate ever succeeded by redefining the nature of the test itself? No, Your Majesty. The trials have remained unchanged for 1,000 years. Then perhaps it is time for change. The Queen looked at Jake with something that might have been respect. This human has shown us something we had forgotten. That understanding comes, not from sharing the same abilities, but from choosing to reach across our differences. She turned to address the assembled crowd. I declare the trials complete. Jake Morrison has proven his worthiness not by becoming like us, but by showing us the value of remaining true to himself while honoring our ways. The crowd erupted in confused murmurs. Some seemed pleased, others shocked. A few looked angry that tradition had been broken. Furthermore, the Queen continued, I declare the life debt satisfied in a manner none of our laws anticipated. Jake Morrison is free to choose his own path. To return to his people as an honored friend of our house, to remain here as our permanent ambassador, or to find some new way to serve the growing alliance between our species. Princess Zaralyn stepped forward, her face glowing with happiness. Jake, you did it. You found a way to pass a test designed for abilities you don't have. I had a good teacher, Jake replied, looking at her fondly. Later that evening, Jake stood on his tower balcony looking out over the floating gardens of the capital city. The three moons were rising, casting silver light over the crystal spires and singing trees. Princess Zaralyn joined him, as he had hoped she would. So what will you choose? She asked. Earth, our homeworld, or something else entirely? Jake had been thinking about that question all day. Each option had its appeal. He could return to Earth as humanity's first interstellar diplomat, helping to build the relationship between the species. He could stay on the ethereal homeworld and learn more about this amazing culture. Or he could find some new way to serve. I've been thinking about something your mother said, about finding new ways to serve the alliance between our peoples. What do you mean? What if there was someone who could travel between both worlds? Someone who understands both cultures and can help solve problems before they become crises? Jake looked at her hopefully. You're going to be a leader someday. You'll need advisors who can help you navigate relationships with other species. The princess smiled. Are you asking to become my permanent advisor, Jake Morrison? I'm asking to be your friend, who happens to give good advice. If you'll have me. I think that can be arranged. They stood together in comfortable silence, looking out at the alien city that was slowly becoming familiar. Jake thought about the strange path that had brought him here, a simple security assignment that had become